The hum of the air conditioner did little to calm my nerves as I smoothed the silk of my blouse, the cool fabric brushing against my wrist. I could see the city skyline stretched out from my apartment window, the lights twinkling like tiny promises I hadn't yet broken. My phone buzzed again on the marble counter. Another message. From him. My brother. Pack your bags. Just like that, he had ruined the small calm I'd built around Dad's birthday. The words hit me harder than I expected, not because I feared him, but because I remembered how I used to tremble at his anger, how he once made me feel invisible in our own home. I took a slow breath, curling my fingers around the warm ceramic of my coffee mug. The bitterness grounded me, reminding me I wasn't that scared girl anymore. I let my eyes wander around the apartment, my sanctuary. Books lined the walls, photographs of achievements tucked between modern art pieces, my own life meticulously carved out, far from their judgments. And yet, the thought of facing them tonight, in the same room that had once felt suffocating, sent a shiver down my spine. I typed a quick reply, paused, deleted it, and stared at the screen. The weight of my next move pressed against my chest. Tonight, I could either shrink back into the shadow of their expectations, or I could step forward and reveal everything I'd built in secret, the truth about Dad, the truth about them, and the truth they never saw coming. I was 17 the first time it really hurt, when my own brother looked me in the eye and told me I didn't belong. Dad's birthday party had been just a week earlier, and I had shown up in a dress my grandmother had insisted I wear. She always said, "Carry yourself like you're worth the world, Chloe, because one day someone will see it too." I had tried, in my nervous, awkward way, but my brother had only scoffed. "You think you can just waltz in and pretend you matter?" He'd sneered, his voice slicing through the warmth of the living room like a winter wind. I felt my stomach knot and my hands shake, the edges of the present I was holding digging into my palms. I tried to explain, tried to tell him I'd worked so hard on that school project, that I had been accepted into the art program he dismissed as a waste of time. But no one really listened. Not Dad, not Mom, not him. I remember storming out to the garden, the bitter spring air whipping my hair across my face. That's where Grandma found me, sitting on the stone bench, fists pressed into my knees. She didn't scold, didn't pity me. She just slid a small, leather-bound sketchbook into my hands. "Your voice is yours alone, Chloe," she whispered, her eyes catching the light of the lanterns. "They can't take that from you. Not ever." It was a simple gift, almost laughable in its smallness, but it felt like a seed planted deep inside me. I opened it later that night, tracing my fingers over the blank pages, imagining a life where my ideas, my talent, and my dreams mattered more than their approval. That night, I decided I wouldn't wait for them to recognize me. I would build myself from the ground up. I would leave the shadows of their judgment behind and carve out a world where my worth wasn't questioned, a world where my voice was undeniable. And so I packed, not my bags, but my determination, my plans, and my will to succeed. I left the house not in defeat, but in quiet rebellion, carrying with me the fragile but steady promise of what I could become. I didn't know what the world had in store for me, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to the life that made me feel invisible. That sketchbook my grandmother had given me became my sanctuary. Every night, I poured my ideas, my frustrations, and my dreams onto its pages. I drew, I planned, I imagined myself in a world where my creativity mattered, where I was the one in control of my destiny. After high school, I moved to Boston, leaving behind everything familiar. I rented a tiny studio apartment that smelled faintly of mildew and paint thinner, but I didn't care. I spent long nights hunched over a drafting table, teaching myself digital design, building portfolios, and reaching out to anyone who would respond. Rejections were constant, often crushing, but I refused to let them define me. I reminded myself of Grandma's words, "Your voice is yours alone. They can't take that from you." Then came Marcus. He was a seasoned architect in a firm I had been nervously applying to, the kind of mentor who didn't just see talent, he nurtured it. He believed in my ideas when no one else would. He introduced me to clients, encouraged me to push boundaries, and more importantly, taught me to believe that my designs weren't just good, they were exceptional. Under his guidance, I found confidence not just in my work, but in my ability to navigate a world that often dismissed young women with big ideas. It wasn't easy. Some nights, I'd cry in front of my computer, questioning if I could keep up. Some days, I'd feel like giving up. But every time I landed a project, every time a client complimented my vision, every time I sent an invoice that covered more than rent, I felt myself growing stronger. Small wins became milestones. The first major client, a boutique hotel downtown, felt like a victory not just professionally, but personally. The first profitable project gave me proof that I could survive and thrive on my own terms. And all the while, I kept my life secret from my family. Social media offered just glimpses, a modest post of a cafe mural I had painted, a picture of a rooftop I had designed, but nothing that screamed, "Look at what I've become." I wanted them to see the success, but on my terms, not theirs. I needed to hold on to this secret victory for myself, to savor the quiet power I had built from the ground up. By the time I was 26, I had my own small firm. A handful of talented designers worked with me, all inspired by the vision I had nurtured in that little sketchbook. I had independence, respect, and proof that I had taken the seeds Grandma had planted and grown a life they could never have imagined. And yet, despite it all, a part of me still remembered that day in the garden. That knot in my stomach, that sting of being dismissed. I knew the confrontation that awaited me at Dad's birthday was coming, and this time, I would be ready. The night of Dad's birthday arrived, and I felt a strange mix of anticipation and calm. The house was as I remembered, the polished oak floors, the scent of Dad's favorite lemon cake lingering in the kitchen, the familiar creak of the staircase. But this time, I wasn't the girl who had once cowered at every raised eyebrow. This time, I was in control. I stepped into the living room, wearing a tailored navy suit that I had chosen not to impress them, but to remind myself that I had earned every thread. My hair was pulled back neatly, my makeup subtle but striking, and I carried myself with the poise of someone who had built her own world. My family froze for a moment, staring, as if trying to reconcile the woman before them with the fragile girl they had once dismissed. "Chloe?" Dad's voice wavered slightly, uncertain. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. And my brother, he looked like he'd swallowed a lemon whole. I smiled faintly and let my eyes sweep over them. "Yes, it's me." The room was thick with expectation, but I wanted to let them take it all in before speaking. My eyes flicked to the walls, the furniture, the small details I had chosen to reflect my journey. A sleek abstract painting, a trophy from a design competition I had won, awards lined neatly on the sideboard. The space was mine, a testament to nights of doubt, mornings of perseverance, and years of hidden victories. Finally, I spoke. "I know you've all assumed I'm still struggling, that I'm the same girl who couldn't stand up for herself, who left home because she had no other choice." I paused, letting my words settle in the silence. But that's not who I am anymore. I run my own design firm. I own my own projects. I've built a life I'm proud of, entirely on my own. And yes, I've also uncovered something you didn't know, something that's been hurting Dad all these years. Their eyes widened, questions flickering like sparks in the dim light. I took a slow breath. It wasn't just Dad's health declining naturally. Someone in this family, someone trusted, was sabotaging him, giving him medications that shouldn't have been mixed with his prescriptions. I know because I followed the trail, quietly, carefully. And yes, I know who did it. The room went dead silent. My brother's jaw tightened. Mom clutched Dad's arm, her knuckles white. And Dad, he blinked rapidly, disbelief clouding his expression. "I've saved him," I continued, my voice steady, unwavering. "And tonight you all see me, not the scared girl, not the overlooked daughter, but the woman who could protect him when no one else would, the woman who finally refuses to be underestimated." I watched them process my words, the weight of realization settling like dust in sunlight. Shame, guilt, amazement. They all swirled across their faces. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt unstoppable. The little girl who had been dismissed, the teenager who had trembled at his words, was gone. This was Chloe, whole, powerful, and unafraid to confront the truth. For a moment, all I heard was the faint tick of the grandfather clock, echoing in the room, marking a moment where past hurts collided with present strength. And in that silence, I knew the balance of power had shifted. The weight of the room shifted, heavy with their stunned faces, but I held my ground. I could feel the power that had been denied to me for so long now settling squarely in my own hands. It wasn't cruelty that propelled me. It was clarity, justice, and the quiet knowledge that I would no longer be sidelined. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I said slowly, letting each word land. "But I am here to set conditions. If you want me to continue protecting Dad, if you want a relationship with me, certain things have to change." My eyes swept over them, steady and uncompromising. I started with my brother. "You, Jake, need to confront your own jealousy and entitlement. The way you treated me and the way you've endangered Dad, intentionally or not, can't continue. You're going to take therapy sessions, educate yourself on responsibility, and prove you can act like an adult. Until then, no decisions involving Dad will be yours to make." Mom's tears glistened in the soft light, but I pressed on. "You, Mom, need to stop hiding behind excuses. Your fear of confrontation has enabled harm for years. You will actively learn to recognize manipulation, to assert yourself, and to protect Dad alongside me, not against me." Then, turning to Dad, I softened my tone, but my words were firm. "Dad, I know this is difficult, but I need you to trust me. No more dismissing my instincts, no more pretending I'm too young to handle the truth. We will move forward together, and I will not tolerate any secrecy about your health." I paused, letting the air vibrate with the intensity of my demands. I could feel their resistance, but also the first flickers of understanding, the beginning of acceptance. This wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability, growth, and healing. Finally, I looked at the room as a whole. If you choose to stay in my life, to truly see me as I am, you will respect these conditions. You will act with integrity, honesty, and care. And if you can't, then you will step aside because I have spent too many years shrinking to fit into spaces that weren't meant for me. There was silence. Then, slowly, the tension in their shoulders began to ease. They weren't completely transformed, but the first cracks of recognition and willingness had appeared. I could see it in their eyes, the dawning realization that the past couldn't hold power over the present anymore. That I, and I alone, had chosen the terms of engagement. I exhaled, feeling a release I hadn't allowed myself in years. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing with fear. The room, once so suffocating, now felt like a space where boundaries were being drawn and respect demanded. For the first time, I was the architect not just of buildings, but of my family's new reality, a reality where I was neither ignored nor dismissed. And I knew that if they wanted to remain in it, they would have to meet me there on my terms. The weeks that followed were quiet but transformative. My brother, begrudgingly at first, began attending therapy. I could see the subtle changes. How he listened more, how he hesitated before snapping, how he finally apologized for moments he hadn't even fully understood before. Mom started joining me on errands for Dad's health, asking questions instead of hiding behind excuses, her voice steadier each time she spoke. Even Dad, with his usual stubborn pride, began to lean on me in ways he hadn't allowed for decades, trusting my judgment, acknowledging my voice. I often returned to that leather-bound sketchbook from Grandma, now worn at the edges, the pages filled with dreams, plans, and the story of the woman I had become. I opened it one morning, running my fingers over the inked lines, and smiled. Every stroke, every idea, every night spent questioning myself had led me here, into a life I had built from nothing, with courage as my blueprint. I realized then that the real triumph wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in reclaiming my power, my voice, my self-worth. I had not only protected Dad, but had created a space where love could exist without fear, where respect was non-negotiable, and where I could define my own success. The symbolic sketchbook felt heavier that day, not with memories of hurt, but with the proof of resilience. Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Your voice is yours alone. They can't take that from you. Indeed, they couldn't. They never could. I looked out the window at the city skyline, the lights shimmering like tiny, persistent reminders that life, no matter how chaotic, could be beautiful if shaped with intention and courage. I smiled to myself, letting the warmth of accomplishment and clarity settle deep in my chest. Tonight, as I step into my own space fully, untethered by fear, strengthened by the trials of my past, I know that nothing can diminish the woman I've become. I am seen. I am powerful. I am free. And in that quiet, shimmering moment, I whispered to no one but myself, with the calm certainty of someone who has finally arrived. I am enough, and I will never shrink again.